You're welcome back. Now we're going straight to the interview segment of the show. We informed you at the opening that we are talking about the Academic Staff Union, and just yesterday the union declared a 2 weeks warning strike at its NEC meeting, which held in Enugu yesterday. So that's what we are taking a look at. We want to discuss what the issues are surrounding this strike, how the union came about it, and we have with us the president of ASUU in the University of Lagos, in person of Dr. Dele Ashiru. Good morning and welcome to Unilag TV.
Good morning. Thanks for this invitation. I really appreciate it.
Well, one of the reasons why we decided to invite you this morning is to actually clear the air and give a brief to the community and the public, the reason behind the strike, so that we can have details of what the strike is all about, the agitation of ASUU.
Well, the agitation between ASUU and government has been a long drawn one since 2009, when we signed an agreement with government. Government has been in default in the implementation of that agreement it freely entered into. But much more fundamentally, you will recall that in 2012 there was a protracted ASUU strike, which was suspended because of the intervention of the then president. And after all of the issues, the president agreed to pay the first tranche of 1.3 trillion naira, which was meant to revitalize public universities in Nigeria. Since that release, the government of President Muhammadu Buhari has refused, to honor all of the outstanding issues in that agreement. You will also recall that early last year we were on strike, and to suspend that strike, we had a memorandum of action with government. Up till now, not any aspect of that memorandum of action had been fully implemented by government. Even the renegotiation that is ongoing, it had to take our union a visit to the President of the Federal Republic before the chairman of the negotiating team would agree to behave like a civilized human being and discuss with our union. So, our union today is left with no any other option than to warn government again, because the resolution at our last National Executive Council meeting, which ended early hours of yesterday morning, was that after the expiration of these 2 weeks, we are going to meet again to review government's disposition to our request. And should government fail to live up to our expectation, government should be held responsible for whatever disruption that the system may witness this time around.
Dr. Ashiru, we're here 1 day warning strike, we're here 3 days warning strike. 2 weeks, isn't that too much?
No, you had
2 weeks warning strike. I'm just wondering the number of days. So 2 weeks just to warn.
Yeah, because we believe that this government is irascible. It's a recalcitrant government, and if we had been talking, and there seemed to be no serious commitment to doing what you freely said you were going to do. Take, for example, one of the contentious issues is funding for the revitalization of public universities in Nigeria. When we talk about funding for revitalization, what we are simply saying is that infrastructure in the universities are decaying. This is a university television station. Take a trip to where our students do their business. Classrooms, hostels, etc., laboratories, library. You find out that, these are discrepant places where they put students. And we, as intellectuals, understand that both lecturers and students are partners in the business of knowledge production. Today I am a university teacher. Some people taught me. I'm also aspiring that by the time I leave the scene, I should have reproduced myself. Our conviction is that if we continue to train our students under the present condition, definitely we cannot get people to take over from us to that extent. And if you look at our struggles have paid off. In Unilag today, the shoulder in the hall, if you may care to know, was renovated by the monies brought into this university.
Compared to what it used to be in those days.
Compared to what it used to be. The Faculty of Arts building was renovated by the monies brought in by ASUU. The ongoing construction of El Academy Hall is being funded from the needs assessment money. There's no classroom in this university you enter, you don't find one inscription of either ETF or TED fund. These are brainchilds of our union. And we are thinking that if we consolidate on all of this talks about graduates are unemployable, they are half-baked and all that in Nigerian universities may be a thing of the past. And whether anybody likes it or not, it is the responsibility of the state, the government, to educate its people.
Let's look at the educational institution in Nigeria, or the sector in Nigeria. If you look all around the world, especially in advanced countries, you find that education is not as cheap as we find, especially higher institution education is not as cheap as we find it in Nigeria. What do you say to that?
I am surprised that we are still talking about education is cheap. Education in Nigeria is not cheap. And you see, the problem actually is that you cannot compare a developed country to an underdeveloped country like Nigeria. Well, to put it mildly and ideologically, a developing country like Nigeria. Now, what they need university education for in the United States of America is not what we need university education for here in Nigeria. And that's why government must pay more than a passing interest in what goes on in the education sector. And when you say education is not cheap, it is because they have evolved a system which makes it possible for anybody who wants to go to school over there to do so. In Nigeria, how many Nigerians can pay the fee in Babcock or in Redeemers University or in any other private, in Afe Babalola? Yeah. Which means that if we allow government to do what they want to do, a vast majority of Nigerians will be shut out from higher education. Look at what is going on in the secondary school, sector. Even in the primary school, you now see a school for noble rich, and then you see the school for others. This is a dangerous development because we cannot afford, as a developing society, to say that we can only train a section of our society, particularly those who have stolen enough money, to do whatever they like with their children. And that's why all of us must put hands on the deck to make sure that education, at least at the tertiary level, first degree, is available for every Nigerian who is brilliant, who wants to study. The resources to do so should never be a hindrance. Otherwise, somebody like me will never make it to the university. Okay. And I doubt if you can too.
Dr. Ashiru, like I did say at the introduction, that one of the reasons why we invited you today is to actually clear the air. When the news broke yesterday about the ASUU warning strike for 2 weeks, a lot of people began to say so many things on social media. You find the man or woman on the street who has little knowledge about what the true position is. And some people question, why is this coming at this particular time? I also heard the Minister of Finance say, and I quote, that lecturers who did not register with IPPRS, I want you to clear the air. What is the true issue? Is it about salaries not being paid? What happened to the issue of registering with IPPRS? We also got information about 10% or 5% registered. Some lecturers did not register, so please clear the air as regards IPPRS, salaries of lecturers, and the federal government.
Well, you see, what we agreed at the National Executive Council meeting is that we cannot be taking the issues in piecemeal. Recall that at the last National Executive Council meeting we held at where was that now? Our agreement was that the IPPIS issue is just a distraction by government to derail our demands for the implementation of our agreement. And because we understand that as intellectuals, what we decided at the last meeting in Enugu is to say that let us take the issues together holistically. The outstanding issues in our agreement, and particularly the new threat to our members and to our union about enrollment on IPPIS. As you may be aware, the position of our union is very clear on IPPIS. The first is that a university is not a government department. It's not a government ministry. And it's not an agency of government. And this position is backed by the Miscellaneous Provisions Amendment Act, 1993, where it stipulated very clearly, and it's on the net, you could check it up. All government circulars and all that will be invalid as it has to do with universities. It's in the law. We are also saying that the laws that established respective universities also vested in their respective governing councils issues of finance, payment of emolument, etc. And we are saying that if we are in a democracy, we cannot afford to allow government become lawless.
But who employed lecturers really? Is it ASUU or is it the government?
It's the governing council.
You know what I mean?
You see, lecturers are employees of their respective governing councils. The President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is the visitor to these universities. There's a difference between a civil servant and a public servant. Lecturers in the university are public servants. And what is more, even if government is our employer, let us assume without conceding, for goodness sake, the managers of state where they are in the respective positions at the pleasure of the Nigerian people. The money in question does not belong to President Muhammadu Buhari or the Minister of Finance or to anybody. It belongs to the Nigerian people. And in civilized societies, when the intelligentsia says we are opposed to a particular policy of government, what is reasonable, what is desirable, is for that government to say, let us sit round at the table and look at the gray areas, and not the kind of wanton threat by the Minister of Finance. So and in any case, ASUU is today being vindicated on our position on IPPIS, because as we speak, the Accountant General of the Federation has not been able to respond to the queries of the Auditor General of the Federation concerning disbursement on IPPIS way back in 2016. So if a policy is failing, and we have also gotten reports of how people were either underpaid or overpaid on the IPPIS platform, I think that what is only reasonable for government is to say, look, you are the intelligentsia in our society. Sit down and together let us fine-tune this platform and take care of all the peculiarities, and we all agree. But in Nigeria, state managers of states only rely on brute force and not on meaningful engagement, which should be the pivot upon which the development of any society should revolve. So our union is opposed to the IPPIS system because it violates our laws, and it has also shown clearly that it's a platform that we're ill prepared.
Sorry, Benga,
Well,
don't you think there's a division, really?
Yeah.
Okay,
We need to go on a break now.
We'll just come
Yes.
It's getting more
very
heated in
interesting.
here.
It's getting very interesting.
The conversation is
But-
getting more interesting.
But then
Let's just go
after
on
this break, after this break, we come back and the conversation continues. Welcome back. It's still Unilag Television, Morning Rendezvous, and we are talking about ASUU and the warning strike that they have embarked upon recently. We still have Dr. Ashiru in the studio, and he's been talking to us very fervently about the grievances of ASUU this morning. And then Lamo was going to ask you a question.
Yes, I was going to say that you have some lecturers really who actually participated in the registration before data capturing before the end of the year last year, you know. So don't you think there's a division between the union?
No, there's really no division. In every group of people, there are deviants. Even in the disciples of Jesus Christ, you have a Judas. The propaganda about government that a certain percentage of our members have registered on IPPIS is not true. In Unilag, we have a staff strength of 1,700 and something. I can categorically confirm to you that less than 250 of our members registered on the platform. So, how does that constitute a majority, for goodness sake? But that's really not the issue. The issue is that our union is a union of intellectuals. We have analyzed the IPPIS and we advised our members not to register. If you feel that your kernel will best be served by registering on the platform, so be it. But what I want to underscore is that there are two categories of people in the business of teaching in the university. There are the intellectuals who have taken, this job as a calling. There are those who are mere university teachers who see it as an avenue to a pay jacket. Whatever will affect the salaries of those people, they are scared to the marrows and they will run to Noto, to government, to do whatever. So we understand, that there are those categories of people. But even in spite of that, we are saying that the evil embedded in IPPIS is too huge for the Nigerian university system. And there's all the talk about lecturers work in 6 places, they work in 12 places and all that. These arguments are neither here nor there.
Are you saying they're not true?
They are absolutely false.
No, but I remember that some of the issues raised during negotiations between the federal government and ASUU as touching this IPPIS was that some of the fears of ASUU, such as during sabbatical payments that accrue, and the federal government was very clear about it, that it only happens once in 7 years according to the rules, and that IPPIS has been designed to take care of these peculiarities. Added to that is, this sounds to me like an employee dictating to the employer how he or she wants to be paid.
Let me start from the last question. What is wrong in an employee telling an employer how he wants to be paid? In the United States of America, if you got a job today, they will give you a form to indicate how you want to be paid, whether weekly or twice in a week or monthly or whatever.
Yes, but this is just...
And in labor law, there is what is called the principle of collective bargaining. We are not dictating how government should pay us, but we are saying that this method you want to use in paying us portends danger for our collective interests. For goodness sake, you should concede to us. And it has been clearly demonstrated. Last year, those who work in immigration, some of them were not paid. Some of them were overpaid, such that they were now being asked to refund money. Up to now, they have not refunded. The army, there was a protest in Uyo about payment on IPPIS. Only recently, the Accountant General of the Federation couldn't respond to queries from the auditor of the country. What other testimony, what other evidence do you need to show that this is a huge fraud they call IPPIS?
Don't you think it's work in progress? I mean,
after how many years? And we're saying that let us sit down and perfect it, and you say no. Go into that danger. For goodness sake, Nigeria is too civilized to be run the way the country is being run by this category of people. When people who says that the Nigerian people cannot challenge government policy. And if you challenge a policy of government, what is reasonable, what is logical, is to say, okay, let's sit down and plot the graph and offer suggestions to improve it. And that's why our union has offered pro bono to develop a better system, which we call the University Transparency Accountability System, which will enable government to see on a software the movement of all Nigerian lecturers from one university to the other. Is doable if you register with what is it called here, Access Bank. The thing automatically shows at the headquarters that you have been enrolled, you have been a customer of Access Bank. That technology is available here, and we're saying let us advance. Let's up the game. But they wouldn't do that because the paymasters of IPPIS, which is also part of the problem that we have. The owners of Nigerian government is not the one that owns the franchise for IPPIS. The owners are in the US. Whatever goes into IPPIS database in Nigeria is recorded in California. And should there be a disagreement between the Nigerian government and the owners of IPPIS, according to the agreement, it will be resolved by the laws of the US in a county in the United States of America. So what is the talk about Nigeria's sovereignty? And we are saying that let us develop homegrown, more flexible, robust, creative platform. And you say no.
Well, I need to understand something, Dr. Ashiru. How do you engage government in your discussions? Really, is it through letters or phone calls?
Or meetings?
How do you invite government to come on the table, and what tone do you use to call government for negotiations? Really?
Well, I don't know about the kind of tone. I don't know whether government can dictate what tone a union should use to engage a government that is...
It is not about dictation of by the government. I think it's about conflict resolution here.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, if we have a disagreement, we will write to the Minister of Education, who is the supervising ministry, and then the minister will communicate other relevant agencies of government. We will request for a meeting. Sometimes they will invite us. We'll go there and discuss. So they will agree, they will not fulfill the agreement. Even on this IPPIS matter, we met the president of the country, who gave matching order to the Minister of Education. I am quoting him. He said, Minister of Education, with this ASUU document, you have a lot of job on your hand. He handed over the document to him and said, go and resolve all the outstanding issues. And rather than other ministers cooperating with him, they are just making the job extremely difficult for the Minister of Education. So
but at the level of ASUU and the Minister of Education, the issues were resolved. There was a formal meeting.
Yes.
There was a formal meeting. We are meeting with the minister. Throughout last week, there was a meeting with the Minister of Education. It is because there are no meaningful resolution of the conflict that is bringing us to this question of a warning strike.
Some of the things you even mentioned, things right in University of Lagos and other public universities, things that have been achieved from tranches from the federal government in terms of monetary support to universities with a view to developing structures. So is the government not trying enough?
No, they are not trying enough. There's a far cry because we have a document which is also on the net, needs assessment of federal university. You can check it up. We have, specific issues and the cost implication. Even now, we should be asking for interest accruable on, because if in 2012 or 13, you say you are going to give me 100,000, it's not the same 100,000 that I will collect today if you eventually get it. But we are saying that government's commitment to public education, to educating its citizens, cannot be compromised for whatever reason. And ASUU is not asking for tokenism. Look at how much there are people in the National Assembly that are not producing anything, how much they are earning. Only recently we were told that one of them went to Dubai to organize his birthday party for his mother. 500 million naira. in a country where there are no reagents in the laboratory.
Well, I
But
think
he
he
said-
responded
he said
that
that
it's
it's
some
not-
personal
it's not-
money
yeah,
and
it's
it's not from the
government
public
money.
fund.
Which job is he doing that?
Well,
if he should tell us what he has done in the last 30 years, and let's calculate how much he had earned to buy. Only a few years ago, he bought a G-Wagon for the wife.
So you said that you were making a threat earlier that about the fact that if government, after this warning strike, government should...
It's not a threat.
So what exactly is the ASUU going to do if government does not respond?
I
after
won't be
these
able
2
to
weeks?
know what ASUU is going to do. I am not ASUU. I'm only a member of ASUU
Okay.
and a member of the National Executive Council of ASUU. When after the expiration of the 2 weeks, we will meet again, review the situation, and we will let you know what we will do.
Well, quickly, I have one final question for you. Still talking about the strike. When to elephants actually tussles the grass that actually suffers for it, you know? I've always asked this question. Must strike really be the end result to get the attention of government? Don't you think it will get to a particular stage after several threats, strike here, strike there? Aside from the fact that it affects the students, really, a student that is expected. I mean, I was affected during my days as an undergraduate. I was supposed to finish school at the age of 21. But I didn't finish school at the age of 21 because of strike, so I had to finish school at the age of 22, 23. In those days, in 2004, 2005. So some students now, after 2 weeks and nothing is done, you will find the calendar being moved and, you know, convocation just got postponed again. So really, don't you think this will affect the students in a negative way and all of that?
Well, I don't think so. I don't think so because, like I've always also responded to that your question, when there's no pain, there's no gain.
Must it be strike?
So, and I've always challenged you, give us options. We're open to such suggestions. Before we embarked on the last strike, there was nothing we didn't do to get the attention of government, including the Minister of Education. We went to his office, we wrote letters to royal fathers to prevail on them. Some they even asked us to lobby. And you know what lobby means in Nigeria? Wife of the president and all that.
Which ASUU did?
ASUU don't do such things. So, but those that are legitimate, we did. No response from anybody. The very day we declared strike, the minister went on air to say ASUU can now come for a meeting. Even now, this is a warning strike. This 2 weeks is a long opportunity for government to say, look, let's sit down and resolve all of these issues. There's a Ministry of Labor and unemployment or unproductivity in Nigeria. Up to now, no reaction. But when the full-blown one will come, you will see how they will be. And also because Nigerians should know that a lot of people are also profiteering from this business they call strike. What we are simply saying is that our students must understand that this struggle is also to better their situation. Yeah, you said you were affected by a strike when you were a student, but you also knew the condition under which you were studying here. And you would agree with me that yes, we may not have reached where we expected, but there are improvements. So the risk that we run is for all of us to fold our arms and allow these universities to collapse.
But Doc, don't you think government is already...
I was a student in this university. In Jaja Hall, we were only 2 in a room. How many were you when you were here? And today, how many are they? You enter a room in Jaja, 16, 18 people living in a room that was originally meant for 4 people. For goodness sake, the risk we run is for all of us to fold our arms and then allow only those who have been opportune to steal Nigerians' money to educate their children.
But don't you think government is already faced with different challenges, and this coming on board again will
priority.
stabilize?
Government should prioritize. In any case, what is government doing? There's no road, no serviceable road in Nigeria. There's no healthcare. There's no water. There's no security. Education is failing. And you say government is doing what? Give me an example of what Nigerian government is doing successfully.
But this government just came on board
After how many years?
No. Compared to what it's been in those days,
a
you don't think it's work in
government
progress?
is continuum. This is the 5th year of the Buhari regime. He spent 4 years.
Compared to 16 years of the opposition?
I am not a politician. I am a unionist. And I don't compare whether it's 16 years. You don't need eternity to change a society. And in any case, what has changed? People are going to Dubai for birthday under the 16 years. People are doing it now. They were stealing money under 16 years. They are stealing money today. There's total neglect of the education sector over 16 years. In the last 5 years, the same neglect. And they oscillate. So what is 16 years of? It's the same leprous fingers of the same hand. And that is the clear position.
Dr. Ashiru, what is the way forward? Federal government keeps saying they are overwhelmed due to national challenges, insecurity, poor infrastructure, and then the dwindling oil price. The price of crude yesterday crashed to as low as $33 per barrel. And Nigeria benchmark for the 2020 budget estimate is 57. So we are $24 behind. So that is on one hand, and then all the other national challenges, and ASUU is here again. 2 weeks warning strike. What is the way forward?
The way forward is for all of us to be united in holding government accountable. Democracy is about participation on the part of the people and accountability on the part of those who are leading us. We are not doing enough in holding government accountable. If anything, we make excuses for them. This attitude must change. Students, journalists, lawyers, artisans, professionals, ASUU, NASU, all of us should demand accountability from government. The conviction of ASUU is that what we need to fight in this country is the greed of those who are ruling over us. There's enough resources in this country to do whatever is conceivable. Only recently, in a neighboring country, the legislators are cutting down on their allowances because there's pressure on the economy and on the society. In Nigeria, they are buying vehicles. How many? Look, let us drop these excuses for rogues. Let us all be united in demanding accountability from them. And if not, we chase them out of those offices that we voted them to be.
So I would like to chip in a question here. So I like the angle that you took this discussion to, talking about holding government accountable, especially young people. If we look at Nigeria, the history of Nigeria, even maybe before in pre-independence, post-independence, we see that young people, university students, were active in holding government accountable at the time. So what would you say changed now that has made, in fact, even in the university system, there is no student union anymore?
It is by design to achieve what we are seeing now. They saw in those days that the only challenge to the mismanagement of the Nigerian society was in these categories of people. So it was a long, deliberate plan to decapacitate that critical arm. And that is what we are reaping today. In those days, students would have risen against the heist that is going on in government today. But today, we have been so psychologically battered that we no longer hate our dictators. All of us wish to be like them.
I think it's residual in the educational system. What kind of education is being dished out to young people?
Yeah, because it's deliberate. It's deliberate de-education of the Nigerian people. Recall that at some point in the history of this country, lecturers were sacked for teaching what they are not paid to teach. What are they not paid to teach? That look, one of the beauty of an educated person is to demand accountability, ask questions. And I mean, for all of us here are graduates. You were taught in GST 105, I don't know what is it in your own, logic. How to hold somebody accountable on the basis of logic. And then they try to remove all of those critical causes and now put entrepreneurship, employability, and all of those kind of things you are doing now. It's really unfortunate.
Well, quickly, I'm happy that you've been able to say that everyone should actually come on board to hold government accountable. But on the final note, really, if you're to stay with Mr. President, what would you be saying to Mr. President, really?
I would tell him that the only thing that can change Nigeria is a better education system. And go and look at all the histories of either developed or developing society and look at their attitude to their education sector. Even in Africa, in South Africa, a quantum of Nigerians have been trained in South Africa with public money. Nigerians, those are countries with global aspiration. So if I have an opportunity to sit with Mr. President, I will tell him, invest in education. The UNESCO benchmark is 20%, between 20 and 26% of your GDP. In the last 10 years, the best we have gotten is 10%. Such kind of attitude to education can never develop a society. Look at the Asian tigers. Their development came from their education system. In Germany, in Netherlands, even in the US, spending a lot of resources in education, technology, advancement. And Nigeria is not short of the requisite people with the intellectual capacity to do all of these things. The only thing that is required is government to become serious and understand that if you de-educate your people, you get this kind of society.
Well, thank you, Dr. Ashiru. Not disappointed with your argument this morning. You've actually touched a whole lot, I must confess. And for those who are watching back home, but before we wrap it up, hope when next we invite you, you will definitely be here to give us an update.
I will, thank you.
All right. In the last 35-40 minutes thereabouts, we've been talking about the 2 weeks warning strike courtesy ASUU, talking about their demands, and we also talked about the issue of salaries not being paid as well, the IPPIS platform as well, and we had opportunity to interact with the ASUU Chairman, Unilag Chapter, talking about Dr. Ashiru. Once again, thank you for coming on board.
Thank you for
we will continue to give Nigerians update about the ASUU strike. It started yesterday, and let's hope that government would invite ASUU to another table to have proper negotiation and the strike is actually called off. Well, this is how far we can actually go on the show today. We'll take a break, and when we come back, it will be time for sports, and we'll take a look at the papers as well. So stay tuned. Keep it locked.
I am Lillian Adodi.
Real Skills is my name.
My name is Observe.
My name is Bayosola.
I'm Vina Peters.
I am Rotimi Afolabi.
I'm Jennifer Aligwe. Welcome to Blooming Health.
Right? Okay, legendary in the view there. Y'all know what's up. And for this one, for a whole lot of people that don't know what Oyi means, Oyi is that, number 8. Oyi basically means guy or
Welcome back. Still Morning Rendezvous on Unilag TV. We're so sorry there's a mix-up with the setting this morning. That is why we had to do the interview first before coming back to the papers. And on the show today, we won't be having sports, but sports will come up much later in the afternoon. Quickly run through the pages of the newspapers today. We have The Nation, The Punch, and The Guardian. The first story from The Nation today: Lagos House of Assembly boils. Sacked men replaced. You get the details. It's available the front page of The Nation.
And the big one coming to you from the Guardian newspaper says that the Kano royal crisis in a new emir of Kano, Aminu Ado Bayero, and then the throne, the emir Malam Muhammad Sanusi II. That's the story. It starts on the front page and continues on page 4 of the Guardian.
And same story on the front page of the Punch. Ganduje dethrones, banishes Sanusi, appoints Adil Bayero's son new emir. The story is on page 2, and there are 2 riders to that. Sanusi showed total disrespect for office of governor Kano, and then I have this one: deposed monarch banished to Nasarawa, ACF calls for calm. Just grab a copy of the Punch, and there is also the picture of security personnel and enforcing the dethronement of Mohammed Sanusi II, and driving him out of the palace on his way to Nasarawa.
The next one: ASUU begins strike over payroll. Others: government action illegal. You'll find that page 7 of The Nation.
Another one says federal government proposes budget cut as projected oil price hovers around $20. Page 5 has the story.
Similar story on ASUU on the front page of the Punch this morning. Details on page 13. ASUU declares 2-week warning strike. Alleges FG ignores agreements. You just have a copy and then you find the story on page 13.
Well, quickly, 3 more stories from the front page of The Nation. Nigeria gets second COVID-19 case. Buhari sets up task force. And this one says state chairman backs Oshiomhole. You find that also on the front page of The Nation this morning. And Areoye Oyebola dies at 85. Knocks for social media bill at hearing. That's how far I can go with the front page of The Nation this morning.
I have this one that says why we embarked on 2 weeks warning strike by ASUU. Page 5 has the story.
Still on the front page of the Punch, this has to do with the coronavirus. FG to cut budget, seeks new oil benchmark. Details you find on page 30 of the Punch. Other stories on the front page of the Punch this morning. APC set up caretaker committee, appoint acting chair. APC may set up caretaker committee, appoint acting chair. Details, page 18 of the Punch. Nigeria records a second coronavirus case. Buhari raises panel. You find that on page 7 of the Punch. Right beside the nameplate, AFDB approves a $200 million for Nigeria's power transmission project. Details you find on page 29. Buhari fails to appoint heads, boards of 80 agencies. You find the story on page 18 of the Punch newspaper. And at the lowest, the bottom section of the front page of the Punch this morning, 23 burnt as vehicle crashes, explodes in Jigawa. Details on page 13. Policeman seeks 1 billion naira compensation from hospital for daughter's death. Details pages 4 and 5 of the Punch. Get citizenship through investment. Island woos Nigerians. You find this too on page 8 of the Punch newspaper. Ogun banks on World Bank $5 billion to combat erosion. Ogun banks on World Bank's $5 billion to combat erosion. Details on page 13 of the Punch. Tenant pushes landlady to death over door closure. Pages 4 and 5 of the Punch. And finally, on the front page of the Punch this morning, Lagos Assembly removes 2 officers, suspends 2. Details on page 6 of the Punch.
All right, quickly we'll go straight to the sports page of the Nation this morning. Igalo sparks Man United Marshall revival. You get the details. It's available on the sports page of the Nation newspaper today.
And then this one says Nigeria disbands camp as ACA postpones T20 championship over coronavirus.
And I have this one on page 47 of the Punch. Babangida falls Roar's list for AFCON qualifier. That's former Super Eagles forward Tijani Babangida in the news this morning. Details you find on page 47 of the Punch.
Other stories also from the sports page of the Nation today. Nwankwo Kanu wants a Gallo back in Eagles. Still talking about the Eagles. The coach of the Super Eagles of Nigeria, why I picked Desas Ehibwe for Sierra Leone. And this one says 4 states bid for 2022 NSF Universities Golf Tour for Smoking Hills. You get the details on the sports page of the papers, and that's how far I can go with the sports page.
I just have 2 more stories here. Assembling 23 foreign-based players against Sierra Leone, a waste of funds, says Omokaro. Asaka pleads for more home-based stars. And the final one says that Obaseki solicits stockbrokers' support for National Sports Festival. That's the final one coming to you from The Guardian.
And the other stories on the from the sports section of the Punch this morning. On the back page, I have this one. NFF LMC to review stadiums, medical facilities. You find the details on page 43 of the Punch. And from the inside page, I have this one. Funds threatens Kano's participation, may lose bid 2020. That has to do with the Edo 2020 preview. Other story, Katsina prepare 170 member contingent for Edo Fiesta. Lagos Team Lagos camp bubbles with 680 athletes. These and a whole lot more stories you get from the Punch newspaper. Now this is the point where we wrap up this segment of the show. We've been able to bring you stories from the front pages and the sports sections of 3 dailies: the Punch, the Nation, and the Guardian.
Our time flies really. Before we started the show, I was like, I mean, Tuesday looks pretty slow. I don't know if you have that same feel as well.
I mean, it's just the same for me.
All right, so that's how far we can actually go on the show today. Sports will come up much later at 3 p.m. on Unilag TV. We'll implore you all to actually stay tuned, keep watching Unilag TV. And now that we have another case of COVID-19 in Nigeria, let's make sure we wash our hands. After we leave the set this morning, I'm also going out there to wash my hands, and I'm sure you will wash your hand as well.
Of course, I will wash my hands.
Before COVID-19, I'll have said, oh, Benga, good morning. Zule had the voice, good morning. Well, after I wash my hand, I can say good morning.
It's a wrap for me too this morning. Thank you so much for watching us, and we'll be back again tomorrow.
You didn't tell us your name.
My name is Toyin Zule Hagani. I thought you knew already.
Okay, I'll start with mine. My name is Benga Bele. Thanks so much for being with us, and thanks so much for being part of the show this morning. Until tomorrow morning, when we'll be back again with another fresh episode, I implore you to enjoy the rest of your day. Good morning.
My name is Michael Oladimeji Lamo.